They only remember how it ended. The pain, the misery, the stats. That this man was overrated, washed up. But that can't be his legacy, can it? That is not the Daniel Ricciardo I remember. Has the F1 world really forgotten what he gave us? I'm Jack. Let's talk about it. Part 1. The talent was and will always be there. Daniel Ricciardo is known for one thing in his racing: sheer, raw ability. Ask any F1 fan their favorite overtakes. They would likely say, this one, or this one. But it wasn't just the overtakes, was it? His late braking, his control, his calm under chaos. It was racecraft at its finest. Ask fans about their favorite races. They would likely say a Ricciardo race win, like Monaco 2018, redemption in a wounded car. Baku 2017, P10 to P1, an overtaking masterclass. And Monza 2021, victory after a year of struggle. Ricciardo didn't win by coasting the fastest car. He won by fighting his way through the pack, making them pure victories. They weren't pole to flag processions, they were fights. They were entertainment. And that's why, even up to the end of 2021, many regarded him still as one of the best drivers on the grid. He had the X factor you can't teach, that spark, that brilliance, and that magic. And the world knew what it was. The future world champion. Part 2. Is Daniel Ricciardo overrated or underrated? That's the key question in all of this, isn't it? Let's go quickly down memory lane with a little recap of history. After getting the call up to Red Bull in 2014, Ricciardo was now teammates with one of the greatest drivers of all time, Sebastian Vettel, who just came off 4 consecutive win streak of the driver's title, while decimating teammate Mark Webber in the head-to-head battles. For Ricciardo, going up against such a prestigious teammate was no small task. However, baffling the F1 world, Ricciardo would mop the floor with Vettel. In sessions where both drivers finished, Ricciardo edged Seb in qualifying 11-7, and in the race, an astonishing 11-3. Sure, there are extenuating circumstances you probably can gift Vettel, like it's a new regulation change, he had to adapt. It was strange for him with the rear end of the car slipping out all the time. And you could also say his mind had already checked out to Ferrari. But nonetheless, it was clear Red Bull had another superstar on their hands in Daniel Ricciardo. The world saw it and started touting him as a future world champion. Looking at his stats before McLaren, it sort of makes you realize, and it clicks a little bit, that maybe they were onto something. Ricciardo led his teammates' points by 1,159 to 1,019. Sure, sounds close, right? But the biggest hit was in 2018 against Max Verstappen. Sure, Max surged that season, but the points gap was largely down to the fact that Ricciardo had horrible unreliability in his car. Over this time, he wound up with 7 race wins, 3 pole positions, 14 fastest laps, and 31 podiums. On these statistics alone, Ricciardo would fall on average roughly the 30th best driver in F1 history. I know, not the most accurate representation of someone's legacy. Legacy just isn't about stats. And I also know, and I'd be the first one to admit, that it rules out those historical drivers in older eras where their cars and their format isn't comparable to modern F1. But still, considering that there have only been 34 drivers champions in F1 history, it is not far-fetched to say that Daniel Ricciardo had the talent to be a championship winner himself. I want us to remember this. Out of the 781 drivers in F1 history, Ricciardo would almost undoubtedly fall into the top 50 best of all time. But also remember how exclusive F1 is as a sport. We say it all the time. 20 of the best drivers in the world. If this is truly the pinnacle of motorsport, which I believe it is, then we should give a driver who stands out in the top 1% maybe just a little bit more credit. In my opinion, the Honey Badger is greatly underrated. Part 3. The victim of right place, wrong time. So I want us to entertain a what-if scenario here. Let's get into it. Let's say, what if Red Bull continue their dominant period all the way throughout the 2010s and Mercedes never had the best car? What would that look like? Well, in 2014, the Austrian team was confident that they would yet again dominate the sport after nailing the F1 regulation change. But what that season saw, nobody expected. The reigning 4-time world champion Sebastian Vettel would have his championship winning run come to a close by his new teammate. Ricciardo is seen by the world as not only a world champion, but as a future all-time great. 2015 sees Vettel jump ship, never the same again. Ricciardo goes on to get back-to-back championships. Now enters teenage phenom Max Verstappen. This is where it all changes, right? Max Verstappen wins his first race for the team. The F1 world is stunned. Is this over for Ricciardo? Is it done? Is it just 2 championships and that's all he gets? However, Ricciardo held strong. Consistency beat chaos. He takes 2016 and then he takes 2017. 4 championships on the bounce. Then, finally, the changing of the guard. Ricciardo, riddled by reliability problems, would see his 5th championship title fade from his grasp. Upset by Red Bull favouring Max more, he would jump ship, just like his predecessor, Sebastian Vettel. However, now regarded as one of the greatest to drive a Formula 1 car. Sure, okay. I know this sounds wild, but it's plausible to say that Ricciardo could have at least gotten 2 to 4 world championships. Sadly, as we know, this never happened. Ricciardo in his prime only really ever had the 3rd best car on average over the course of a season. The harsh fact of F1 is that, we can always go on about the fact that, the driver makes the difference. It's all about the skill of the driver, how fast they are over 1 lap, over a race distance, and all of that stuff, right? But it's more than that. The car also has to match the talent of the driver. If that car is below what it needs to win a championship, then that driver is just not going to win a championship. Look at Max Verstappen this year. It's the perfect example. Danny Rick is a victim of the so-called right place, wrong time. Had he peaked maybe 5 or so years later when Red Bull peaked, the story could have been very different. But I'm sure you have drivers in mind that also fall victim to this. Who knows? Maybe like Charles Leclerc, George Russell, or even ones in history. Mention them in the comments. Part 4. The catalyst for F1's future. Usain Bolt, Conor McGregor, Gael Monfils, David Beckham, Daniel Ricciardo. What do all these guys have in common other than being at the top of their sport for many years? That they drove fans into the sport for more than just the sport itself. Showmanship and an entertaining personality can transform a fan base. Now, many criticize Drive to Survive fans for the lack of big picture perspective and the stupid comments made without any connection to history or the past or any context for that matter. I couldn't agree more. However, I don't think that the issue solely extends to newer fans. All fans can get lost in narratives. One is that F1 has lost its identity, that it is no longer just about hardcore racing. Now, this is half true. F1 is no longer just about hardcore racing, but it has not lost its identity. It's gained more substance. We actually care about the drivers, their personality. We connect with their humor, and this gives fans more reason to tune into the sport. Why? Because they have more passion. Sure, you could say drivers like Hamilton, Schumacher, Senna transformed the sport because of their pure skill. But you could also say Daniel Ricciardo changed F1 forever because of his lovable off-track demeanor, personality, and character. After all, the first season of Drive to Survive focused on him more than any other driver or team for that matter. Consider this. Before Daniel Ricciardo, were drivers less, the same, or more free to be themselves? Look at the F1 grid when he was there versus when he wasn't. I think you'd find it a little bit more flatter and a little bit more emptier. Part 5. Daniel Ricciardo's true legacy and what I've always wanted to say. Is Daniel Ricciardo a washed up nobody? No. Did Max Verstappen destroy Ricciardo in the Red Bull? No. Would Ricciardo have won a championship if he had a slightly better car? I would say so. Did he transform the sport for the better? Absolutely. Why did people turn on him in the end? Because he was so good that when he deteriorated slightly, the whole world came down on him. He was so good that everybody expected him to be good. The good old Harvey Dent from Batman The Dark Knight says it perfectly. You either die, in this case, retire, as a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Christopher Nolan adds, build them up, tear them down. That's the way we treat people. Ricciardo was around long enough to see himself become the villain. A tragic end to an amazing career. How I remember him. I see him as a legend of the sport. Someone whose talent we never saw fully realized. I wish he'd come back, but if he never does, thank you for what you brought. Daniel Ricciardo will always be my favorite. What about you? How do you remember him? Did you forget? Let me know in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you liked the video. I'm Jack, and you watched Jacked F1.